Two of the top teams in the NBA going after it on Wednesday night. The Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Houston Rockets. The top team in the East taking on the second seed currently in the Western Conference. It's going to be a great one to cap off a Wednesday night. We got the 5 biggest games you should pay attention to on Wednesday slate with some leans, bets, player props, all that good stuff right here on Full Court Slash, brought to you by Slasher Sports. Billy, what's up, man? We got plenty to talk about on today's slate. After yesterday's just boring slate with a bunch of blowouts and what we expected to be just a really just a boring slate, it really was. We finally get some good basketball coming in. Almost a full slate. We got 9 great games. We're going to get you 5 right here.
Yeah, man. Boncaro, he really teased us yesterday with a hot first quarter. I had a solid second quarter, and then just went ice cold again. Toronto caught fire. But we missed on his points and assist prop, which is what we locked in, even though we teased his PRA prop on the show. Game-wise, we played Toronto on the money line. It looked ugly at first. They were down by 20 after the first, but they absolutely dominated the second half, and they got it done for us. When we flip-flopped on that, you had brought up possibly taking Toronto. I was leaning towards the Magic, but that was, full health. I wanted to stay with them with full health. And then the scratches started happening, and everything just flipped on us. So we went with Toronto on the money line, and they pulled it out. And, but hey, enough of yesterday. That's yesterday's news, Christian.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 for 1 on yesterday's slate that started off this week after the holiday starting on Monday. So took a day off with that. 1 for 1 to start of the week. Not too bad for the slasher. I think we might have more than 2 locks heading into this one because there's going to be some plenty good games. We'll see how it all goes. Again, these are going to be the leans on this show. You want the locks, head over to our Twitter X page later on in the day at Slasher Sports. Check it out. We will definitely have you covered over there. And if you want to just follow straight up, you can scan that QR code. You take it right there. All right, the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Houston Rockets. Cleveland, I'm looking at a 2.5-point spread as a favorite right now. 36-6 so far this season. They got a 15-4 away record against the Houston Rockets, who are 28-14, currently second in the West. They're coming off a pretty disappointing loss to the Detroit Pistons the other night, 107-96. Detroit really looked good. Detroit looked really good against Houston. And to be completely honest with you, Billy, if they play that way against Cleveland, I think it's going to happen to be another loss for these Rockets. They got a brand new core right now. They got 3 players that are looking really good. And even without Jabari Smith Jr., who's been out with some injuries, they're still finding ways to win with their young players. On the flip side, Cleveland has really just took all the tools they've acquired over the years and finally starting to put it together with Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and company. They've won their last 2, including a road win against the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Phoenix Suns. They put the hurt on the Phoenix Suns, 118-92 on Monday. As we look into this game at Houston at the Toyota Center, what are your thoughts on this one? I see Karis LeVert is a game-time decision for Cleveland, and Dante Nafali is also a game-time decision for the Rockets. Nafali is leaning more towards being out. Is that what your minutes are saying for the slasher as well?
Yeah, so, man, this thing is pretty razor thin. Cleveland's coming in at minus 140 favorites, and I get it. Their defense can really suffocate teams. Houston, like you said, they're young, they're scrappy. At home, this isn't a slam dunk, though. At minus 2.5, I'd lean Cleveland to cover. Their defensive edge should be enough. But as for that total at 221, this game feels like it's going to stay under, man. It feels like a slow-paced game. Both teams, they rank on the slower side in pace in comparison to the league. Cleveland's defense can grind games to a freaking halt. But looking at the props, Donovan Mitchell, he makes sense to me. Over 25.5 points, that's where I'm guessing they're going to put him. Houston's perimeter defense is really shaky at best. Evan Mobley, over 9.5 rebounds, feels like a good spot for him. And Sengun, facilitated ability, underrated, but his over-under is never really crazy. I think we can look at him at 4 assists, so over 3.5. Christian, does Cleveland roll here, or do the Rockets make it messy like they've been doing lately?
I'm leaning towards to see what Donovan Mitchell can do, because ever since he went up against OKC last Thursday, we only had 8 points. Both games against OKC this year, he has not been good whatsoever. He was 3 for 15 in the second game. He was 3 for 16 in that first game. and he just really didn't shine. And that's something that obviously Cleveland needs going into towards the second half of the season if they're trying to continue to hold on to that 1 seed. Since that
Yeah.
game against OKC, the second time around, he had 36 points against the T-Wolves. He had 33 points against the Suns. I think he tries to keep that rolling. Almost like he's got this little chip on his shoulder after going against OKC just last week. I think he keeps that going. If he does, the Rockets are in trouble. But on the flip side, I think the Rockets are going to figure it out because they do, although they have a young core and it's going to take them a little bit to get there. I do like where they're going in the direction that they're at. So I think this is going to be a really good game. I don't think neither team rolls, if you will, but I personally would take Cleveland with the points, 3 points or 2.5, however you're looking. I would lean that side.
Yeah, that one looks good to me. That one looks really good to me. And honestly, there are 3 or 4 games on this slate that are as thin as paper, and you could easily take the right now. Just lay down your money on the underdog, sleep good at night. It really is a much better slate than what we were playing with yesterday. So much better.
Yeah. Yep, I'm with you. This is going to be a really good one. This is a slate that can make money, folks. It's a really good one. So pay attention to some of these plays and definitely pay attention to the locks coming at you later on social media before tip off today, because it's going to be a really good one. All right, moving on here. We got the Detroit Pistons taking on the Atlanta Hawks. We just talked about the Pistons, how they played really well against the Rockets on Monday. They're 22-21. They're just above 500. And to be completely honest with you, Billy, I think this team is probably one of the best playing basketball teams when you look at it performance compared to record. They are playing way above what their record says, and I would be nervous if I was any team, even if they're coming into your arena like they're doing with the Atlanta Hawks at the State Farm Arena tonight. So with that being said, Cade Cunningham has been absolutely electric. He's been really good over these last couple weeks, especially. And then on the flip side, Trae Young. Right now, he's currently going to be a game time decision. We don't know if he's going to play. Same with Jalen Johnson. They're coming off a 9-point loss against New York Knicks on Monday. They did have a nice overtime win against the Celtics in the middle of that road trip. But I'm leaning towards the Pistons here, and I want to see what the props and the slasher says. This was a really good game the first time they played. Beginning in November, the Pistons squeaked by and won 122-121. Would not be shocked if this is another close game, but I'm leaning towards Detroit to get it done once again.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I didn't think I would be. With Atlanta at home, Detroit on the road. Looking at the money line, the Pistons, they're slight underdogs, which kind of surprises me with how well they've been playing lately. And honestly, they've been sneaky, putting up 117 adjusted. What I have these guys at are 117 adjusted points. Let me kind of break that down a little bit. When we find our models, we say, what does this team look like at full strength? And then we start to play the addition and subtraction game, right? So when injuries, they come off, people get confirmed for their lineups, and it goes right back up. I like them putting up at almost 120 points on Atlanta, because Atlanta's defense isn't exactly shutting anybody down. That the spread for 2.5 for Detroit, I'm surprised they're not favored. So I'm leaning towards them covering if you want to play the spread, but I like them on the money line. The total set at 235 feels a little bit high considering both teams can stall offensively. I think the under, unless this thing turns into a surprise shootout. But looking at props, I guess we should go ahead and talk about Trae Young, even though he's a game time decision. Detroit's backcourt, it's a sieve. It's over 9.5 assists. Seems like an easy get for me. That looks good. Cade Cunningham's another name that pops. You just said it. He's been clutch. He's been their leader, man. Over 22.5 points feels like a solid angle for me. I think he reaches that easily, especially against that shaky backcourt from Atlanta. And one of the surprises here that I have is Jalen Duren over 10.5 boards. I want to lean towards that one. I want to see what the over-under is opening up, but that number makes sense to me just looking at past performance and how Atlanta struggles to keep the glass clean. They're not Windex, man. They can't keep it clean. But Christian, what are you thinking? Where are we going from here?
Yeah, with Trae Young, he's played in the last couple of games, and although he is considered a game time decision, a lot of things are you're pointing in the direction he's going to play. He's probable. We're talking about this Achilles injury. And I think it's just more of just kind of an ailment, if you will, because he played against the Knicks. He played 35 minutes against the Knicks, scored 27 points, had 6 assists. He did, exactly what he needed to do, although they got the loss. And then in that overtime win against Boston, he played another almost 40 minutes, played almost a full game, and had a double-double, 28 points, 11 assists. So I'm leaning towards him playing. I'm sure the slasher probably has minutes for Trae Young as well. So definitely pay attention to some of those props in there. But I'm still leaning towards the Pistons. And right now, if you think that Trae Young's not going to play, or if you think he's going to be limited, which I do not, but regardless of the fact, I think you get the opportunity to take that Pistons money line, because something tells me that it's going to shift either to almost even, where you're going to want to play the money line anyways, but the odds aren't going to be in your favor, or it might shift to Detroit being the underdog, or the favorite when it's all said and done. So if you believe in Detroit, if you can get it early, just like we are right now, I would definitely hammer that to begin the day. Looking at the Golden State Warriors taking on the Sacramento Kings. This is always a fun matchup for me because you get those two on the West Coast, Golden State, Sacramento taking it on. I always like watching this one. This is going to be the nightcap. We're hitting that one at 10 Eastern on ESPN. So we'll see how that one goes. But regardless of the case, Sacramento is looking to keep that home streak alive. They got a home streak right now, and we'll see if they can hold on to it. Golden State's been very interesting. They're sitting right at 500. They're 500 on the road. They're 500 at home. Like, this team is what the youngsters like to say, mid, Billy. I don't know if we want to keep that up. I don't know if I'm going to continue with this youngster talk whatsoever. But they are a 7.5 point underdog. It's so wild to me that we're starting to continue to keep talking about the Warriors being underdogs. I'm still not used to that. I'm still not used to like moving on from them being a dynasty, like, because it's in the rearview mirror. Regardless of that case, Steph Curry's still there, but we still have DeAndre Fox on their side as well, Sabonis on their side as well. What are you taking from this game? Are you leaning the Warriors, thinking they can get it done on a money line, which currently what I'm seeing is a plus 250 odds if you think they can actually win this game? Or do you think Sacramento covers or just takes care of business?
Maybe I had thinner odds on that one. Let me check this out. So, yeah, plus 295. Is that what you're seeing?
I'm seeing plus 250, so you might be seeing 295. That's even better if that's the case.
Oh,
what's your over under you're seeing?
Crazy. It's crazy to see plus odds on the Warriors like this against Sacramento of all teams. I mean, that's not a thing that you would see in the past, right? And honestly, man, the Warriors' road record, it's rough. They don't thrive like Sacramento does at home. And when that crowd bringing all the energy at minus, what was the spread here? 7.5, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think I might have gotten it a little further. I got it at 8.5 when I pulled my numbers. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, this feels like such a wild game to me. I like for the Kings to cover this, but where I'm really looking at is I believe the total was right around 228. Yeah, 228. That's where I'm playing ball on that total. It feels like Golden State's defense is inconsistent. 228 feels really low, and I like Sacramento's offense the way it delivers at home. I'd lean over here, especially if this thing gets fast-paced, becomes a shootout, because, sometimes Golden State can play above what they really have going on, and they can keep it close. And if you keep all of the guys on the floor like De'Aaron Fox, he really stands out for me in this game. I believe they're going to put him right at 27.5 points. And I like the over on that as well. It just feels right against the Warriors defense. Sabonis, he should dominate the boards again, like he always has. So over 12.5 rebounds looks pretty sharp. Those are my props for this game. I might just make a night of this one. I want to watch Detroit and Atlanta early, watch Sac and Golden State late, and just make a night of it, man.
Sabonis has been one of like the winners for us as of late. It's been him. It's been Pascal Siakam. Like, those have been the two. So if you've been like OG listeners so far to this show, you've probably seen us talk about Sabonis and Siakam a lot, because they win for us. They help our pockets load up. So I'm with you. I think Sabonis can do that over 12.5 rebounds. I mean, if that's a bet that you can get, if you can get him at over 12.5, then I'm all for it. I wonder if it's going to be that. I think that's a fair assessment, over 12.5. I think it was that last game. And I'm with you, over 27.5 for Fox. The over 228 is going to be interesting to me. And I like the lean, but that one's going to be a cautious lean for me, Billy, because what we saw for them against the Celtics, it was not good watching them play. They shot dreadful. I think I remember correctly, they were shooting under 40% from the field when it was all said and done.
Not
It
from
was
three,
really,
from the field.
overall, it was really bad. Yes, 34.8% overall. They were 32 for 92 on the game. Now, is that an easy thing to correct? Probably. This is a professional basketball team we're talking. But going from that to an over in a game like Sacramento, to me, that's going to be a little cautious. So I'm going to be paying attention to that one. But I'm not afraid, because scared money don't make money, Billy.
Mm-mm. If you're scared, go to church.
That's right. Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Dallas Mavericks in the fourth game you should pay attention to in tonight's slate. The Timberwolves, ninth in the Western Conference, taking on the Mavericks, who are seventh in the Western Conference. Still no Luka Doncic, still none of that. Kyrie Irving came back the other night. He looked pretty good, but they still lost against the Charlotte Hornets in a tough matchup. It was a tough matchup for for Dallas. Charlotte held on and won that game 110-105. Excuse me. On the flip side, the Memphis Grizzlies defeated the Timberwolves in the last game 108-106. They also lost to Cleveland by 7 just a few days ago. I'm not taking anything against them for losing for the Cavs. The Cavs are really good this year. But the Timberwolves are struggling as of right now because of, which is surprising, Anthony Edwards. For some reason, 2 games in a row against the Memphis Grizzlies, they have given Anthony Edwards the game-winning shot. Now, you would think that would be a good idea, but there was a stat going around on Reddit, and I believe it was that in his career, Anthony Edwards is 2 for 19 on game-winning shots in his career. Think about that.
Is that real?
Yeah. I mean, I that's what it was, a stat on Reddit, so I hope it's real. I mean, it's all Reddit, but regardless of the case, if that is real, that is wild. That is insane. 2 for 19 on game-winning shots, and you're thinking that he's going to be your superstar of the future. Now, don't get me wrong, Ant is incredible, but that's something you got to pay attention to when you're trying to build a team around and get into the postseason. And right now, they're 22-21, taking on this Mavericks team who is trying to stay afloat while Luka's out and nursing that injury. The Timberwolves head into the American Airlines Center to take on them. Mavericks 13-8 at home. This is the first time I believe this is going to be their final time playing this season. The series is currently 1-1. Mavericks won the first one, 120-114. T-Wolves took care of them on Christmas Day. That's right. They won 105-99. What are you thinking about this one in the finale of the series?
Well, the Wolves coming in at this plus 120 money line, with Kyrie possibly being limited, even if he plays, he's not playing the old 36-minute, game frames. He's playing, 28 to 30. It feels like this one might be ripe for an upset.
For the record, he played 41 minutes against Charlotte. So, I mean, just keep that in mind.
What
Kyrie
about
might
before
be back.
that?
On Friday, he played 39. So, I mean, we got two full-time minutes in a row, 2 games in a row, and that was against OKC.
Let me look at this log. Let me look at this log. It feels like they're having to shoehorn him into these minutes because they're missing people. And I don't mean just Luka.
Right.
But, I mean, with or without him, they're struggling to generate offense. And that's why I'm really liking Minnesota to pull this one off. And the earlier we can get it, the better. If by the time you watch this, they're still at plus odds and you haven't heard any crazy news about the injury report, let's look at who do they have on the injury report right now.
While you're looking at that, let me just say this thing. Memphis was dealing with remember I told you how Anthony Edwards had 2 game-winning shots, both against Memphis. He missed both of them over these last 2 games. The one that just happened on Monday, the one that happened the following Saturday. That second time around, the first time around, I should say, they went in and they played the Washington Wizards next up. They beat the Wizards 120-106. Edwards went off and scored 41 points. So
Oh,
maybe the
Lord.
fact that he missed that game-winning shot this time heading into Dallas, maybe he goes in with a vengeance yet again and goes absolutely off. Maybe that's something you should think about in this game against the Mavericks.
Yeah, and the Wolves are basically playing with a clean bill of health here. They got a couple of guys out, one for an extended time, one guy who's due back in February, but neither one of them are game changers. And that's why if this thing turns into a grinded out kind of game, slow pace, and that literally we just talked about Kyrie. The type of game that he's playing now is a slower paced game. He's no longer the guy pushing the pace. Now he's taking that veteran role and he's letting things develop, and he does a good job at that because he is a very smart guy. But if it turns into that kind of game and you can keep your guys kind of not so winded, maybe we keep this thing close and maybe Dallas holds on. But any other scenario, I like Minnesota in this, and it's wild to me. Maybe it's because of the road odds, but it's wild to me that we have plus odds for Minnesota with a guy like you said. Now the surprise there for me was Anthony Edwards in that stat, the 2 for 19. Maybe just maybe they are doing with him what the Sixers were doing with Ben Simmons a while back. They just listen. He can't hit threes, so let's keep trying to feed him for threes and see if he develops into something. Maybe they're wanting to build some confidence, just like keep dishing it to him. Keep giving him the opportunity to let him see that we're behind him and he is the guy. But, I'm still going to stick with him for some props here because I do think Anthony Edwards is the guy to watch. They're probably going to put him around 27.5 points. That feels like a strong play. If it goes up very much higher, okay, then we can talk about it. And we will lock that in later on. So again, pay attention to our social medias. We're going to lock this stuff in. We're only leaning right now. We want to find some angles that we can exploit. And one angle that I like to exploit is Rudy Gobert. He should dominate the boards. So he's not quite the rebound machine that he used to be, but 11.5 is very doable and is worth a look. If Kyrie's not 100%, if for whatever reason we think he's going to limp into this game, he remains a game time decision up until tip off. I mean, I would go under 25.5 points for him. That's kind of my low number for him. So are you buying the upset, Christian, or is Dallas going to hold firm?
I don't even know if you can consider this an upset. I think this one's a pretty even matchup. I'm leaning towards Minnesota as well, so I think you can take him on the money line, no doubt. I think the 27.5, if you get Edwards on 27.5, I think you slam over. I don't know if it's my gut or my intuition because it's obviously not the slasher in this case, but looking at those statistics and seeing how he performed. Now, I know it's the Washington Wizards, but what he did after that Memphis game, putting up 41, if that number for the point spread, and sometimes I like to play a little bit with my gut. Sometimes I like to do that, Billy. With Anthony Edwards, if I wouldn't be afraid to play over 32.5 right now. Like that's where I'm leaning. Obviously, I'm not playing it yet, but if I had to play a lean from my gut, I'm going Anthony Edwards 32.5 tomorrow night. Think about that.
You're going to go that high? I like it.
Tonight.
I like it.
27.5 is where you're at. My gut says 32.5. We'll see what we come into because I feel like that's going to be one of our locks when it's all said and done. I feel like Anthony Edwards is going to be a play that we wind up picking over on Slasher Sports on the Twitter X machine. This is going to be a fun one. You know what's also going to be a fun one? Your Boston Celtics taking on the Los Angeles Clippers. Always a good time in the Intuit Dome. That's a really cool stadium, by the way. I got to get there. I want to really check that out. Celtics won the first one of this 2-game series, 126-94, November 25th. Boston, they're starting to figure it out. I think they're starting to finally get on the right path. They're starting to get there. Obviously, they're still dealing with some injuries themselves. Al Horford, game time decision. Drew Holiday, game time decision. Same with the Clippers, though. They have some issues. Kawhi Leonard's out. He's not going to be playing in this game. James Harden's a game time decision. Norman Powell is a game time decision. With that being said, the Boston Celtics, what I'm seeing, close to a 10-point favorite. I see 9.5 on the spread. With the fact that the Clippers might have so many players out, and with Boston starting to look like they're figuring it out, do you think they take care of the spread? And if that's the case, how many points do we see Jason Tatum put up? Because I think if they take care of the spread, that means Jason Tatum went off. That's where my head's leaning towards.
You're probably not wrong there. And it's really going to depend on who the Celtics decide to suit up. And betting on the spread this early in the day is really difficult because you don't know. Listen, Missoula might look over and say, "Hey, the Clips are going to be resting this guy, and this guy. So why don't just rest two of ours to three of theirs and try to skim it out and edge them out over a close game." Our depth beats your depth. Maybe. I don't know. But right now, from the starting point, it feels like this spread should be a little bit wider. The guys that we know who are going to be out for the Clips and the guys that might be out for the Celtics, we don't know. It feels like this should be closer to double digits, 12 and a half, but nine and a half. I would almost venture that just tonight. I would almost do that right now as we're talking. But I mean, listen, the Celtics are heavy favorites, heavy spread. It's almost something you don't want to play with. Heavy spreads are really difficult to mess with because if it does get out of hand, people like Tatum, people like Jaylen Brown are going to sit, and you're going to depend on guys like Peyton Pritchard to get you over those over/under props. But honestly, I don't see how you go against the Celtics here. Their depth, their defense, they make them the better team. The Clips plus 9.5, but with Kawhi on them, is Kawhi out for sure?
Yeah. Yep. He's considered
so he's out.
Yep.
Out. Okay. Yeah. Boston's going to cover, man. The over under. What's the over under here? Let's.
I'm seeing 216.5.
216. That feels low. That feels high. I feel like that's something that we can get away with by playing the under almost right now. What did you say those totals were from the last game? It was something to 97.
Yeah, 126.94. So it was 100 or 220. It's about 220.
Yeah. See, I don't think the Clippers are going to be able to put any points on the board. It might be a 220 kind of game.
And we didn't have Kawhi Leonard in that one. We didn't have James Harden. We did have James Harden in that one.
We did have Harden. So
we did have Harden. We didn't have
test right there.
No,
did have Powell?
No, just Harden. Powell? Yeah, just Harden was the big guy in this one. Zubac was the leading scorer for the Clippers in that first game back with 23 points. On the flip side, you had Tatum, you had Porzingis, you had Derek White, you had Jaylen Brown, you had everybody really for the Celtics. I think you can still hit that under if you're at 218. I think
you can too. Play. Boston's defense is elite on the road. The Clippers' half-court offense isn't going to scare anybody. Tatum, I mean, hell, he could have a big night. Over 29.5 feels like a no-brainer. I feel like we've got other routes here, but I mean, that's the slate from my end. This Clippers game, I don't know, man. I want to watch the Kings. I want to watch the Celtics. I might have to pull them up on a couple of screens. I'm trying to beat Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm trying to write a book. I'm trying to do a lot of shit here, Christian, and I just don't have time because these games are so good. They're so juicy.
Yeah, that's right. But you got plenty of time here to talk about your leans, which we are going to be doing to you every single day, Monday through Friday, here on Slasher Sports, the Hoops channel of Slasher Sports. Hey, speaking of Hoops channel, we're going to have more coming at you later on next month. We got more things releasing or re-releasing, if you will. The resurrection of Slasher Sports is here. It's coming back. So be sure to tune in. Check us out on our social media page, all that good stuff on Twitter. You can find it in that QR code right above Billy's head. And you can see so much more on Slasher Sports, all that good stuff. But until then, we'll see you here for another episode of Full Court Slash next time. Take care.